different contracts. There's work bogies, funding, and the civil works, from meter gauge to standard gauge. Now, it was from Mombasa to Naivasha, 2 different contracts. But the total sum is 500 billion shillings. Everything, the wagons and the civil works. And that went into a funding contract between the Kenya government and China Exim Bank. And the principle of the contract goes like this. The Chinese Exim Bank is going to give the Kenya government 90% of the 500. And in turn, the Kenya government is to raise 10% for the funding of SGR. So we did a simple audit. These are public records in the books of government. We are not creating anything. We are simply going by what is written. That audit over the years said this, that before China Exim Bank pays money towards the construction or towards the purchase of wagons, Kenya government must show that it has paid the 10% to Kenya Railways to then be onwardly transmitted to the contractor called China Road and Bridge. That was anchored in something called self-raising finance grant from the Treasury to Kenya Railways for SGR construction. It's very clear, very specific, 10%. So Erick, of 500 billion, 10% is 50 billion. So Kenyans were to raise through the Treasury to give Kenya Railways 50 billion shillings. So all we did was do numbers. Let us see every year how much went out. So we looked at the loan, 450. They were drawdown certificates that were issued from the Treasury to China Exim Bank. Every time they say they have confirmed 10% has left to go from Treasury to Kenya Railways. So we did the sum of the drawdown certificates to China Exim Bank, and they roughly come to about 450 billion shillings. Different exchanges, but it's roughly that. And then China Exim Bank would pay China Road and Bridge. So China Road and Bridge was paid by China Exim Bank 450 billion shillings. That one, it's there. We have the documentation. Then we said, let us now audit the amount that left the Treasury to go to Kenya Railways, to then go to China Road and Bridge, the same company that was building this railway. And we did the sums. Was it 50 billion? No. We went on. What do you mean? Same thing. It is written there. Self-raising finance grant, Treasury, to Kenya Railways for construction of SGR. The total of our 10% was not 50 billion. It was a total of 644 billion. So our Treasury literally paid for that SGR of 500 from our own money. But we took a loan and we are still paying that loan. So China Road and Bridge as a company received almost 1.1 trillion shillings on a contract of 500. 600 billion shillings above the cost of the project, above the cost of the entire project. I'm talking about the civil works and the rail and the wagons. Now, it's the same China Road and Bridge that is said to have invested 100 billion in our expressway. That 600 billion is ours. It was plundered from our Treasury. Should have been 50 billion. They took 600. So 550 billion is plundered from our Treasury. To date, we are still paying a loan to China Road and Bridge, to China Exim Bank, of the 450. Where we are today is at 370 billion outstanding. We are still paying that loan. But I want you to understand, all the good people of this country, that we paid for it from the Treasury. China Road and Bridge then comes and builds an expressway for 100 billion and starts charging us to go on it. It is called money laundering. They are cleaning that money for people or parties. It's obvious they were keeping that money for somebody, and it's being washed back. That is the tragedy of SGR. This is the balloon that was created that ended up being trillions across the board out of charlatans, out of criminals who decided to plunder this country. Erick, the tragedy is that this is very simple. It's not complicated.
Yes.
It's a simple thing. It is not complicated. We don't need to hide behind large terminologies in budgets or finance books or this or that. No, it's very simple. Our laws are simple. The numbers are there for all of us to count. It is very easy to draw a conclusion as to what is happening. And any other practice, even the ones the previous speaker was talking about, are just a consequence. The same. If the king is stealing, even all the servants steal, and everybody just keeps stealing. It becomes normal. Plunder. This plunder, Erick, is not new to Kenya. It's just that this time it is such a large magnitude, it is going to affect us for a very long time. And under the new constitution, we thought we had created controls that would stop it, or at least bring it to our attention much earlier. The charlatans knew how to avoid our eyes, the eyes of the COB, the approval of COB, the eyes of the Auditor General. The Auditor General is the one who is supposed to audit debt within 6 months of the end of a financial year. We have not seen an audit. The new Minister of Finance got there, said he's going to do an audit. We've never seen it. Nobody will audit. Nobody wants to audit because they know exactly what is going to come out when they audit. We are going to see right through what has happened, and they're not about to do it. William Ruto is not about to change this because he's a participant. He was before and he still is even today. Anybody who is a beneficiary of the previous regime or this regime is a participant in this plunder. They are not going to change our lives. They are going to continue it. And we actually are at a precipice. It took Argentina 20 years to realize they have totally collapsed and just say, to hell with it. We are going a different way. We are going to fagia wote and choose somebody that has been screaming as a loner, a footballer, who's an economist, and we are going that way and we don't care. And they're starting to breathe life because they were so captured by these charlatans from one party, one element of the country to the other. Here we are. And we need to understand that this is a system. And that system is premised by the colonial government that came here. In 1920, we were colonized as Kenya. That is when Kenya got its name. 1920, we were called Kenya. And it's just because the Mzungu could not pronounce Kirinyaga. He saw the mountain, he heard it's being called Kirinyaga, and then he called it Kenya. He could not pronounce Kirinyaga. We were called Kenya in 1920. And what many people don't understand is that we were colonized by a private company. That private company was called Imperial British East Africa. That came here in 1889, right? Forced a protectorate in 1902, but then became the government of Kenya. In other words, that company, which came here under the scramble for Africa,